So if you're anything like me, you can't contain yourself, and anything that even smells of a hobby that you could invest your time, money, and effort into, well, then you just decide you want to dabble a little. And that was me with miniature painting. And while I was never the best, I got pretty decent. The thing is that I haven't painted in about another 5 years. Well, more like 4. See, I know the exact timing because I was in the midst of painting Battle of Five Armies here, which came out in 2014. I ended up picking up this game. I played it a bunch. I loved it. You know me, I'm a big Tolkien guy. And I was like, yeah, I want these to look really nice. And then along came one Mr. Cardboard Harold Jr., and that was early January 2015. I haven't touched painting since. Now, my progeny is a little bit more independent, and I can find the time to get back to these things. And I was having some nostalgia for this game, which I truly haven't played, because who wants to deal with half-painted miniatures? And so, I took a look at my paints and went, wow, these aren't going to cut it. These are looking grimy and nasty. The brushes are good, but the paints, ugh, let's get rid of it. And then it dawned on me. I have this video channel. Why don't I get a nice paint set? I mean, I'm an adult. Why can't I just get a nice uniform paint set like I never had? Get rid of this crap that I just amassed over the course of 5 years of going, oh, I need this color or I need this color. And see how that works for someone who's just getting into painting miniatures as a hobby, or who's returning to it after a long absence like me. So I have here the Army Painter Mega Paint Set, and we're going to be taking a look at this today to see if this is genuinely the best way, or an okay way, or a terrible way, or some way of getting back into miniature painting. So today on the Cardboard Herald, the Army Painter Mega Set. Let's check it out. The first thing you'll notice as you open this set, other than the distinct aroma of a high school art class, is that it's exactly what it advertises. 50 paints, a brush, a guide, and nothing else. No really convenient storage option. It just so happens that my wife had picked up a makeup rack meant for spices that didn't work out, and I snagged it before its return. Look at this. It's glorious. As for the paints, these are great. As I've been painting minis, I found them consistently mixed, easy to work with, and in more than enough colors for a basic painter like me. You have all your basics like elf flesh and goblin green and warlock purple. Wait, that's totally pink. Warlock purple? What? Anyway, yeah, the array of colors is wonderful, with the only thing I felt like I was really missing were some darker reds, but hey, that's what mixing is for. Speaking of which, mixing is where I started really paying attention to the design of the bottles. Unlike the tubs that I was used to, these are droppers, which means that you have to allocate paint that you put into a palette, or as they call it in my house, a plate, then start painting. At first, I worried about this being a big inconvenience, and in some ways it was. If I underestimated how much paint I needed for a certain section, or I needed to fix one of my many corrections, I had to put more paint on the plate. That said, I actually ended up vastly preferring this method as it's cleaner, and my brush acquires less paint than dunking it into a tub. Ultimately, while there are trade-offs, I'm all on board with this design. Makes me feel like I have more control, but this may be more of a preference type of thing. Though I should say, as I began utilizing more and more colors, I did notice that a couple of the bottle tips had a wider outlet than others, resulting in some gunkage before I had even used the thing. The paint on the inside was fine, but worth noting. And as for the rest of the package, the tutorial is kind of like a weird punk zine meets Sears catalog of mini painting. Not altogether unexpected, but not as illuminating as I hoped. There are some hot tips on how to utilize your paints in here, but a lot of it was advertising techniques for things that you wouldn't have just through this box set. But whatever, who needs that stuff? Thorin Oakenshield looks pretty boss as is, and that's good enough for me. The brush though? Dude, this brush is dope. Yeah, I have a couple other nice brushes, and this ain't your ideal ultra-fine detail brush or a dry brush, but it is a multitasker. This thing is awesome. One thing I learned early on in painting is that it's a misconception that to do general detail work, you want an ultra thin, ultra tiny brush. I mean, thinking about it, it makes sense, but it turns out that you just end up with a glob of messy paint that has no integrity. A brush with more oomph on the end will absorb the paint and effectively sharpen the tip, allowing you to make both broad strokes and the kind of details that I would be incorporating into a mini. Look, I'm not here to give you tips on how to paint. There are thousands of people making videos on YouTube who have much better skills than me. That said, if you were a beginner or you are just honing your skills, you could do a lot worse than this brush. It has a lot of flexibility for doing base coats as well as detail work. That said, if you were to get a second brush, I would totally recommend that you get yourself a smaller flat brush for dry brushing, and then I would pick up some of this gunk right here because you're going to want to keep these clean. After all, as I would tell my son, these are tools, not toys. You gotta take care of them. The last thing I haven't really talked about in relation to this set is that of the 50 bottles, you are actually getting 41 white-tipped colors, 4 red-tipped washes, and 5 black-tipped metallics. The latter two are to be used wisely and sparingly. Don't get me wrong, these are really nice and far better than the metallics I used to use or the washes and inks that I painstakingly tried to make myself, but these are the polish that, if applied with a bit of delicacy, can make a huge impact on your presentation, but can also teeter into garish or flat out nightmare fuel. But hey, practice makes perfect. So, yeah, I am totally sold on this thing. I mean, I don't foresee myself needing to buy any paints anytime soon. Yes, as I get more experience and get into more advanced techniques, if I really stick to it, then there may be special projects in which I branch out and buy specific other paints, but this pretty much gives me all I need. I have tons of colors that are readily available. I can mix the rest, and then it has a good mix of the metallics and the washes. I mean, this thing is really awesome. That said, again, I totally recommend getting something like this if you're going to dive into it. Trust me, you'll thank me later. So it's allowed me to complete this project, which was like 5 years in the making, right? And it's totally rekindled my love of painting, and it's stripped away the hassle that came with my old hodgepodge garbage set. And I couldn't be happier with it. Now, is it a good set for beginners? That's the question, right? And it is, except it sort of isn't. So here's my philosophy when it comes to creative endeavors, or really when it comes to any hobby in general. Don't dive right in and buy all the equipment assuming you're going to like it. Chances are that if you want to paint minis, you already know someone who paints minis, and you can probably borrow some of their paints or get some free lessons from them. Or you have a friendly local game store or a convention that you can go to where they give demos for these types of things, or they might at least give you some pointers or be willing to share some paints with you. Try it out. See if you like it. And at that point, instead of hodgepodge buying paint, totally, that point, I recommend this thing. It is so good. It has an excellent brush that comes with it. The magazine has some interesting tutorials. I am a little disappointed that it isn't really how to make best use of all this stuff, and instead is like, yo, here are the other things you can buy. But I can't blame them for trying to make a buck, and they are some interesting techniques in there, so at least they're trying. They could have included nothing. So yeah, with all that, I think this is such a wonderful set, and I am so happy with it. And I'm so happy making this video. Like, I was so enthusiastic as I was painting these minis, and I've been thinking about it more and more every day. And I know I said earlier in the video that I'm not giving a tutorial. There's plenty of other resources on the internet in order to find that kind of content. But on the other hand, I do have this channel. So if you got something out of this and you want to learn more about painting, you're wanting to dive in at like the basic level, not the people who are like, yo, anyone can paint doing this, and then teaches really advanced stuff. Now, if you want some beginner stuff, you know, just some tutorials on dry brushing, learning from the experience of a novice like myself, let me know. And if people are into it, I'll totally make it. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's our review of the Army Painter Mega Paint Set of 50 paints. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.